Okay, so do we have any good news then? We looked at a few things like electric cars and so on, and we said you can avoid flying if you want, if you can, and if it's possible, and reduce your emissions even by driving or taking a bus or a train and so on, a ferry and so on and so forth. There is always walking and riding your bicycle when it's safe and when it's possible, but ultimately we need energy, we need clean energy, because no matter what, you will need energy for something. It's not always about reducing emissions, it's about just eliminating emissions if possible. So here we'll talk about the energy of the future, which again is your future, and you are the future. So we'll talk about windmills and water power, in which you will read how nice I am to fossil fuels, why the sun is so full of itself, why air particles always choose the shortest line, why 1 million Chinese people had to move house, why power stations want your waste, right? Why Japanese macaques are environmentally conscious. Macaques are a kind of monkeys that we'll see. Why it's good that prehistoric people didn't build nuclear power stations. What sources of energy have in common with the Smurf. Smurfs are something maybe not everybody knows. If you're a little kid from India or Africa or South America or so Asia and so on, you may not know what who the Smurfs are, but we will see. So let's start by writing a goodbye letter to fossil fuels. Okay, here is a bird taking the message, and here is a machine, an oil drill, saying, oh no, I don't work anymore. And here is a oil producer which is a little too what is the word, it's a too much of a caricature. We assume Arabs are producing all the oil, but that's not true. There are many countries, including Russia and the US and Europe and South American countries, produce oil as well. Nonetheless, it's a bit too biased, I would say. Dear coal, natural gas and oil, you have always been so good to us. There is no way we could have built such a great world without you. Of course, maybe there would have been steam engines run by the power of wood fires, factories running on water power, and cars powered by wind, but it would not have happened as quickly. So thanks for all the wealth and prosperity you brought us, even though it's not distributed evenly, but that's our fault. I also need to thank you personally. Without you, I could never have written this book. That's the author talking about dear coal, natural gas and oil. But you have also saddled us with plenty of problems. Just asked the Ilipika, asked the people of Kiribati, and that's why we want to get rid of you now, even though you've been so kind to us. No, please don't protest like saying, no, I know some people think you have nothing to do with climate change, but I can give you 3 more good reasons why you have had your day and now it's time to stay in the ground. We don't want to bring you out and burn you anymore. First of all, fossil fuels will run out within a few centuries or sometime, because they are a limited resource. They got created in the past, and we've been taking them out and burning, and eventually there is not enough in the ground. You in particular, oil, you will be lucky if you make it into the next century. Of course, there will still be the drills and the drabs scattered around the world, but they are too expensive or too difficult to get out of the ground. So even if there is oil and you want to dig it out and sell it, but if it's too expensive, nobody will buy it, which is what is happening to coal already in many places. Okay, so aren't there any new fossil fuels being made? Yes, but it happens so slowly. Think about it. It took millions and millions of years to form the fossil fuels that we are now using up in a few centuries. In fact, it sometimes took tens or hundreds of millions of years to form fossil fuels. That's why we say that those fossil fuels are not sustainable. We are using them much faster than they can be replaced naturally. That's not sustainable, but who knows? Maybe there will be another ice age one day, then people will be glad that we have left some fossil fuels behind. They can use them to heat up their homes and their planet. Second reason why we want to say goodbye to you combined, you lot, so coal, gas and oil, are responsible for a significant proportion of all the air pollution in the world. When fossil fuels are burned in cars and factories and power stations, lots of pollutants are released. Sometimes you see them in the form of smog, and sometimes they remain invisible and we breathe them, and it goes into our stomach and our heart and our brain and causes serious damage. But they cause lots of health problems. Every year they kill at least 5 million people throughout the world. This pollution that we are creating, this stinks. Okay, there is methane leak that is burning, and obviously that is producing more CO2, and it stinks as well, and we have to wear a mask. And then this crocodile or dinosaur is saying, welcome to the fossil club and go extinct like me. Okay. Thirdly, you're not spread fairly throughout the world. It's all patchy distribution. One country has lots while another has little. There's a reason why so many people are interested in the Middle East. There's lots of oil in the ground there. Countries that don't have much oil want to make sure that they can continue to buy oil from the Middle East no matter what, no matter the climate change and so on. And so they stay friendly with the countries they actually don't agree with at all. Could be religious disagreements or disagreements about climate change and so on. That gives countries such as Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and Russia a lot of power. If someone annoys them, they simply refuse to sell them another drop of oil. So it's handy to have your own sources of energy. Then no one has that power over you. So if you don't rely on the oil from Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or Russia or wherever else, and you create your own energy, then boom, you don't have to deal with these countries. So climate change or not, we have to move away from oil, gas and coal by using less energy, of course, and different sources of energy, and making everything more efficient, like your washing machine and your computer and your car and your trains and planes. Sources that don't run out, sources that don't pollute as much is what we need. Sources that are that emit hardly any greenhouse gases would be great, or none at all would be even better. There are a lot of them out there, but which one is the best, you ask? Well, we'll come back and see. Candidate number 1, sun. We already learned about sun in the first section of this course when we looked at the magic bus riding the solar system, and we talked about how sun produces all that energy endlessly, and of course it'll end someday, but that's many billion years away. So let's come back and talk about solar energy, the first top candidate for producing free energy and clean energy. And if you think about it, that's what plants are doing. They are taking solar energy, combining CO2 and water to produce food for us, and they are taking away some CO2 when that carbon falls, and that becomes fossil fuel over time, and we are burning it. So we are burning fossil fuel, which is solar energy ultimately, but we are burning it after it's been converted into hydrocarbon, and when we burn it, we are producing CO2. If instead we went directly from the sun to energy, to batteries and so on, we can save this step of producing CO2. This is what we want to do. And you already know that the energy balance on the planet, incoming solar energy, outgoing thermal energy, is producing winds, because we have to move energy from low latitudes to high latitudes, because there is excess energy in low latitudes and deficit energy at high latitudes. To move energy we need winds, so winds are also solar power. Everything is solar power ultimately, because that's the main energy source, right? Of course there is some geothermal energy that we'll talk about and so on, but any energy that we can produce without emitting CO2 will be clean energy, renewable energy, because sun's energy keeps coming and we can keep producing it, and wind is always there and we can keep using it to churn a turbine and produce energy and so on. We'll come back and look at a few choices we have so that we can end the book on a high note and say we can solve this climate change problem and we can live happily ever after without making the climate change issue worse and worse for everybody or for anybody. Okay, see you in the next podcast then, children.